Hi again, everybody. So the second question that I've been asked to think about today is to discuss ways early childhood educators can acknowledge marginalized families and their children. And what's important to think about for me, first of all, is how are we creating a community? A community where we are together as one with different experiences, with different cultural values and beliefs, where we bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise to that community. And in saying that, thinking about it as a community, so not one where we have us and others. So thinking about the community as one rather than the community in segments. And that includes the early childhood educators and the families who are part of that community. And one way to create that oneness or that community within a center is to really have early childhood educators think about what their values and beliefs are, to dig down deep and think about what their reactions are in situations and what's triggering those reactions. What is really at the foundation of what we think and why we think it. And in order to do that, as early childhood educators, you have to have opportunity to think about that not only individually, so where you're thinking about your own values and beliefs and your reactions to certain experiences that happen in the early childhood center, but then also what are the values and beliefs of our team and of the center as a whole? And how do our values and beliefs, our individual values and beliefs, how do they align with the values and beliefs of the center? And what we're hoping every child and family will experience when they come to our center. Because we're not always going to react in a way that aligns with the center's philosophy and beliefs, but we need to understand why we are not reacting that way, and then what do we need to do to change it? Because understanding your values and beliefs isn't saying, well, that's the way it is and that's the way it always has to be. When you really look at what your values and beliefs are about, then you can start to reflect on them and pull them apart and say, well, you know what? Why I'm reacting when that child is coming in and maybe they're not settling right away and there's tears and they're crying. Maybe I'm reacting a certain way because that's the way it's always been done. That's what I've seen when I was a child, so maybe I'm thinking that child needs time to be alone, when in fact, maybe what the child needs is to see themselves reflected in the center. If they're coming in and they don't know the language and they don't know the people, then as an early childhood educator, you need to think about how can they come in and see themselves as part of this community? And how do my values and beliefs impact on that? And so we may at times need to say, yeah, that's what happened. That's why I reacted that way, but I need to change the way I reacted. I need to create a space where a child is coming in and they can go and sit with an educator for a bit. They can go and get a book that's important to them. They can have an educator who is greeting them with even a simple word, a simple hello, in the language that they know and understand. So unpacking your values and beliefs, I think, is really important. It's also really important to check our assumptions, because sometimes we will make an assumption about what we think a child or family needs without fully understanding what that child's experiences have been or what that family's experiences have been. So it's important not to make those assumptions, not to jump to conclusions, but to create an opportunity for families to share with us so that we can learn about that family and we can learn about what that child's experiences have been. Another thing that we can think about as early childhood educators is, what is our vision of the child? How do we see that child? Do we see the child as somebody coming in that needs to be supported by an early childhood educator? Do we see that child as capable or not capable? And we want to see the child as capable. We want to learn from the child, find out what they can do really, really well, so every time they come into the center, they're successful at what they're doing. It means not jumping in and automatically doing for the child, when perhaps if we just give them a little bit of time and a little bit of support, they're able to do for themselves. And so when we look at the child and what their capabilities are and see them as a person who is able to be successful and to be part of our community, and a child who has something to share, who we can learn from, that child is going to have a better experience at your early childhood center. When we think about community and building community, one of the greatest ways that we can build that community is to create a time and opportunity for conversations, for discussion, for sharing, so that we have a shared understanding with the family on what's important to them, but also as an educator, we have opportunity to share with the family around what's happening in the center. And so creating a time where families can meet with you, to come in, to sit down, to talk about their children, to talk about what their goals are for that child, then you're building relationships. And when we build relationships with families, we're breaking down barriers. We're breaking down those walls that say, we're here and you're there, us and other. We want to break down those walls so that we have our community of one. And thinking about community of one, thinking about, and I'm sure that you're learning about this in the courses that you're taking, but Bronfenbrenner's bioecological systems theory. And I know for some maybe that's something that you're just kind of dipping your toes into and learning about, but it's really a fabulous theory on children, families, relationships between individuals. And so when we think about the people that are important in that child's life, how are we building relationships with the people that are important in that child's life? If it's the mom and dad who are dropping the child off, but the grandparents, how do we provide opportunity for grandparents, if possible, to be part of that early childhood setting? If not possible for them to physically be there, how do we create opportunity for children and families to talk about their extended family, to bring them in, maybe not physically, but to bring them into that space? When we think about the impacts on children, it's not only those that have close relationships with the children, but also what are the policies of your early childhood center? What are the policies that you can have an impact on that would benefit children and families from a broader systems way of thinking? So as an early childhood educator, you can support families by thinking about how policies impact families, how policies in your center impact families, but how broader policies impact your families. And to create opportunity to talk about them with other educators, to talk about them with other families, to create opportunity to discuss, because some of the greatest changes come from those conversations that start with another individual.